In this video, I'm going to explain how you'd prevent plasterboard from cracking. The biggest reason why plasterboard cracks is because there's some movement behind the plasterboard. Plasterboard itself is a very stable material and it will only start to crack if there's some kind of movement. Now that movement can be caused by lots of different things. If you've not screwed your plasterboard securely to the stud wall or the metal stud wall, then it can often cause cracking if there's not enough plasterboard screws or aren't spaced close enough together. Another thing that can happen is if the wall you fix the plasterboards to isn't very stable, i.e. they've not put many screws in, the wall behind moves. Now when you fix your plasterboard to it, if there's any movement there in that wall or it gets knocked, it could create a crack in your plasterboard. Another thing to bear in mind is because of plasterboard's construction, it's actually made of gypsum sandwiched between two layers of paper. As you'll know, probably everyone's come across this experience, plasterboard is very susceptible to moisture. And that's why we never put plasterboard when we're building walls right down to the ground, as moisture can wick up from the ground, a bit of rising damp, get into the plasterboard and cause it to expand and crack. We always make sure when we fit plasterboard walls, we lift them off the ground a little bit to allow a bit of airflow and prevent any rising damp getting up into the plasterboard. So they're your main reasons for plasterboards cracking. Timber and other materials that you might make your wall out of are also susceptible to moisture and heat. If your timber behind your plasterboard gets wet and starts to move, that can cause your plasterboard to crack. And there are no construction materials that like large fluctuations in temperature. Houses are designed to be in almost like a capsule or like a shell. You've got your brickwork on your outside, which turns the water away. Then you've got your cavity to prevent any damp transfer across. And then you've got your plasterboard inside your home. So you want to try and keep the temperature inside your house or wherever it is fairly stable. If there's extreme swings in temperature, that can cause your timber to move behind your wall. It can cause your plasterboard to expand and contract. It can cause all kinds of damage. So the main ways to prevent plasterboard from cracking are make sure it's fixed securely. You want to make sure it's screwed every 100 millimeters if you want to be safe, or every 150 millimeters. Make sure there's a screw there. Make sure that your plasterboard screws don't pull through the paper. I've seen lots of people screw plasterboard screws in, and you want to have the head of the plasterboard screw just flush with the paper of the plasterboard. You don't want your plasterboard screw to pull through the paper, otherwise it's offering no support whatsoever. So always make sure your plasterboard screws are flush with the paper, maybe down a millimeter, but nothing more than that, so that your screws are actually holding the plasterboard to the wall by the paper. There's no strength in this gypsum in between the plasterboard, as it's just made of ground up rocks. So I hope that video has given you a couple of tips on how you can prevent plasterboard from cracking in your home. If you've learned something from this, drop us a like. And if you want to be updated with information that might help you out on your next construction project, subscribe to the channel. And if you have some other advice for other people, let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.